Hey everyone, I'm Alex. Thanks for clicking and welcome to this grammar video on how to use much and many in English. So I will give you the basic grammar functions of much and many, including some of the uses that you might not be familiar with, or maybe your teachers haven't told you about in your classes. So usually, you probably know that you use much with uncountable nouns. So nouns you can't count. For example, juice, salt, love, electricity. You can't say one salt, two salts, one juice, two juices. It's a liquid, right? And many is used with plural nouns, things you can count. So siblings, your brothers and sisters, books, classes, tables, chairs, buildings, people, anything you can count, you use many with. Now, informally, usually, and notice I underlined the word usually, much and many are used in negative sentences or questions. Now, one of the things I mentioned at the start of this video is that I will teach you some of the uses that maybe you haven't heard in your classes, because there are many teachers who teach that you can only use much and many in negative sentences or questions, and that is simply not true. And in this video, I will show you some situations where you can use much and many in affirmative sentences. But however, it is true that usually we keep them to negatives and questions. So let's start with the basics. We have 4 examples. Let's just read them and talk about them. Number 1, he doesn't have much patience. So we have a negative sentence here, present simple. He doesn't have much patience. So doesn't have a lot, doesn't have enough patience, or the ability to wait for things. How many cups of coffee have you had today? So cups are countable. 1 cup, 2 cups. How many cups of coffee have you had today? Very important to note when you are asking a how much or how many question, you put the noun after how much or how many. So how many cups? And here, the next question, how much studying should I do to prepare for the IELTS? So you can't say 1 studying, 2 studyings, right? So studying here is a gerund. It's a verbal noun. It's a noun basically in this situation. So how much studying should I do to prepare for the IELTS? So again, notice how much, how many cups, how much studying, how much, how many plus the noun, okay? And here we have uncountable, countable, uncountable, and finally, for symmetry and to make it even, we have a countable noun. So we say, we haven't been to many concerts this year. So we haven't been, negative sentence, we haven't been to many concerts this year. Countable, plural, 1 concert, 2 concerts. We haven't been to many concerts this year. So far, we have the basics. And I know this is what you are usually taught in lesson 1 of how much, how many. So just to review, much is used with uncountable nouns. Many is used with plural count nouns. Informally, usually much and many are used in negative sentences or questions. You're okay so far? Okay, let's go to the next board. Now, we're going to look at one of the most common mistakes people make with much and many and the word of. So, here is the structure, and we introduced this structure in the first half of the lesson. Much, many, plus noun, without of. So the rule here is we don't use much, many, or much or many of if there isn't a determiner before the noun. Okay, it sounds a little confusing, but we'll see it in a moment. First, what is a determiner? A determiner is a word that points to a noun. So for example, my, the, this, her. For example, my book, the information, this cat, her father. Okay, so these are determiners. They are words that point to a noun. So such as possessive adjectives or articles. Okay? All right, so don't use, if you don't see my, the, his, her, my father's, Derek's, if you don't see a determiner, don't use much or many of. So similar to the first half of the lesson, she doesn't get much sleep. Not, she doesn't get much of sleep. This is incorrect, okay? Much sleep. There's no determiner, right? So the noun here is sleep. There's no determiner. There's no my, his, her, the, an, nothing. No determiner before sleep. So you don't use of, no of. She doesn't get much sleep. Next, how many books does he own? All right, how many books, plural, does he own? No determiner, so no of, right? Not how many of books does he own, but how many books does he own? Does he possess? Does he have? Okay, so when do we use much or many of? Well, when there is a determiner before the noun. So much or many of plus a determiner like my, the, this, her, his, plus the noun. So, example, I don't know many of his cousins. Okay, I am not familiar with many of his cousins, the people in his family, right? So here you have a determiner before the plural noun, negative sentence. I don't know many of his cousins. How much of this story is true? How much of, determiner, this story that we're reading right now is true? Okay? So remember, only use much of or many of if there is a determiner, a word like the, my, his, her, Jack's, Elaine's, a word that points to the noun before the noun. If there is no determiner, don't use of, okay? Just keep it much or many plus noun, right? Much sleep, many books, okay? Much patience, many tables, many chairs, much knowledge. So far, so good? All right, let's continue. Okay, now I want to look at some more rules, some more situations, specifically using much or many without a noun. So it is possible to use much or many by themselves if the meaning, if the noun is understood, or if the noun is implied, is implicit. So it's okay if the meaning is clear. For example, you don't eat much. Okay, so you don't need anything after much because people understand that, you eat food. So if you comment about your friend and you say, you don't eat much, the meaning is you don't eat much food, okay? You can say, you don't eat much, okay? They haven't taken many. Now, this depends on the context. Many what? So if your friend asks, have they taken a lot of pictures? No, they haven't taken many. So you don't have to use the noun in this case because it's clear from the previous sentence, from the context, that they haven't taken many pictures. Or flyers. Flyers are paper advertisements that people give to promote their business or a service, for example. So they haven't taken many flyers, they haven't taken many pictures, or just they haven't taken many. Okay, now before I said you can use much and many in affirmative sentences, let's look at some situations where this is possible. So one situation is if you use so much or so many, as much or as many, too much or too many. You can use these phrases in affirmative sentences with much or many. So for example, there were so many people there. So before much, before many, you use this to intensify the word, to intensify the sentence. How many? So many, a lot, okay? I did as much work as I could. So this is a comparative where something is equal, or as much as I could. I did a lot of work, as much work as I could. So work is non-count, uncountable. So you use much. I've been eating too much lately. So too before much or many means there is something which is excessive. So you do something or did something or have done something in excess, okay? So too many people. There are too many people here. I've been eating too much lately, too much food. Food is uncountable, right? Okay, next, affirmative informal. So if you say, Alex, I want to use many, I want to use much in affirmative sentences in a casual, informal way, and I will say, okay, just make sure you use it, before, after so, after as, after to. Totally fine. Common, informal sentences. However, if you want to, make informal sentences with much or many and use much or many by themselves, you could, but it doesn't sound informal. So instead of much or many in informal affirmative sentences, use a lot of, lots, and other quantifiers instead. So for example, how many ties do you own? Now, a tie is something you can wear with a dress shirt. I don't have a dress shirt today. I have a Castlevania on Netflix shirt. Watch this show. I want season 3. You can help me by watching it. Castlevania on Netflix. Now I lost my place because I'm thinking about Castlevania and how great season 1 and 2 were. So how many ties do you own? I own a lot. Now, you could say like, I own many, but it sounds very formal. So if you want to sound natural, informal, change many in this context to, a lot. I own a lot. Okay? She has plenty of experience. Plenty of. You could say much. Experience is uncountable in this context, like work experience. So you could say she has much experience, but it sounds very formal, okay? If you want to speak on the street with people, I would recommend using a lot of experience, lots of experience, plenty of experience, instead of much in this context. Now, like I said, you can use much and many in affirmative sentences, but usually these are reserved for formal sentences, formal contexts, such as news reports or speeches or formal blog posts online. So here I have 2 examples. Many problems have arisen since the election. Right? It's an affirmative sentence, many problems. Okay, that's fine. But you can tell it's a formal situation, a formal context. Next, much has been said about climate change. It's much more formal. So if you want to use much and many in this way, you can reserve it for an essay. And just know the purpose of this board really is to let you know you can use much and many in affirmative contexts. You just need to be careful. If you want to be safe, use so much, so many, no problem. As much, as many, no problem. Too much, too many, no problem. Informal, affirmative, A-OK. However, if you want to say, with no so, no as, no to, use a lot of for informal sentences in the affirmative, and save those affirmative much or many sentences for formal contexts, like essay writing, like news reports, and other similar formal situations. All right, are you still with me? Yes? Okay, one more to go. So to finish this video, I want to talk about how to use much as an adverb. Now, an adverb can modify a verb or an adjective or even another adverb. So let's look at some sentences of what I mean by using much as an adverb. So, do you do much on weekends? She's not doing much these days. She's much older than you. He played much better today. So here we have, do you do much, right? On weekends. So you're modifying do, right? You're saying, do you do? Okay, do I do what? Do I do much? You're modifying the verb do with the adverb much here. She's not doing much. So same idea as the first sentence, except we have a present continuous. She's not doing much these days. She's not doing a lot these days. She's much older than you. So you have older, which is a comparative adjective. You can put much before a comparative adjective. So much older, much taller, much bigger, okay, much younger, whatever the comparative adjective is. He played much better today. And again, a comparative in this situation, like adverb. So he played better. He played much better, okay? So finally, in a formal context, you can use much before certain verbs that express preference or enjoyment or some kind of like. All right, so very much. Sorry, I was just reading the sentence. So first sentence, I very much appreciated your presence. So you can modify much with very, right? Or I much appreciated your presence. The fact that you were there, the fact that you were at, let's imagine a scenario, maybe you had a family funeral and your friend came to this funeral and you said, I very much appreciated your presence. Okay, I much prefer the sequel to the original. So if you prefer the sequel of a movie to an original, you can say, I much prefer. Okay, I much prefer the sequel to the original. So you have much appreciate, I much prefer. We didn't much enjoy the experience. Okay, so you have the verb enjoy as well that you can use much before. So much prefer, much enjoy, much appreciate. I very much liked the experience of making this video for you guys, for example. Okay, that's a lot to take in. And if you want to test your understanding of the material we covered today about much and many, using it in affirmative sentences, in negative sentences, in questions, with count nouns, non-count nouns, I know it's a lot, but if you want to test your understanding, make sure that you got it. Rewatch the video and then do the quiz on engvid.com. While you're there, please consider donating to the site and supporting what we do financially. That would be great and much appreciated. Okay? So, also don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. make sure you turn on notifications by clicking the bell, and check me out on Facebook and Twitter, where I try to answer your questions and also keep you updated on all the new videos and new content that I'm currently making. Till next time, again, I very much appreciate your views. I very much appreciate your attention today. Until next time, thanks for clicking. Bye.